Seeing that we already done one popular monster, I decided to go for another one this time, namely vampires. Where does this mysterious creature of the night come from, and how old are the legends thought to be? Vampires is not excluded to the West, but can be found in various forms under different name in all parts of the world. The creature also changed its appearance, abilities, and what it does throughout the ages, and as I said, similar creatures can be found in all cultures of the world, even though they are not strictly known as vampires. I will go through some of them as well, but in a shorter perspective, since I want to dedicate this video mostly to the Western adaptation of this mythological creature. The creature you come to think of when talking about vampires is most likely either the gothic vampire like Bram Stoker's Dracula, or maybe more monstrous form of vampire seen in Supernatural or Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Although Stoker's Dracula is a pretty old novel, this is not the origin of the vampire, and it certainly isn't what it was originally believed to be. As far as where vampires come from is hard to say, but there are certainly information on these creatures even from ancient civilizations. But when talking about vampires in ancient texts or similar, it's usually not a human-formed revenant, also known as a reanimated corpse, but rather a supernatural demonic being, and they are usually more prone to suck out the life energy or your soul more than sucking out your blood. One of those examples are the Chinese Shang-Chi, who are evil spirits, not revenants, that attack people and suck their life energy. While the Shang-Chi might come in form of a corpse, it's a case of possession rather than being an actual resurrected dead. There are various tales about this creature throughout China, Japan, Vietnam, to name some, and some of them are closer to the Western vampire than others. In some texts it states that it sleeps in a coffin during the day, but in others it don't, and it usually attacks during nighttime, since it might prove difficult for a rotten corpse to move through the day without being noticed and violently attacked and burned at the stakes. Unless they think it's a leper, then they might just run away from the disease-ridden creature. Commonly for the ancient world is that the word vampire really didn't exist. What we do know is that they were referred to as spirits, demons, or even the devil himself. The word vampire wasn't common until the later Middle Ages, and the lore of the vampire started to change. Although corpses had been accused for being revenants and sucking blood before, it wasn't until the 18th century that a mass hysteria broke out, and much like the witch hunt, people got accused for being vampires. Some corpses was even staked after death to prevent them from coming back, and the number of vampire sightings reports were through the roof. This, however, also led to us having the luxury of at least one well-documented case of an alleged vampire. Petar Blagojevic is maybe the most notorious case. Living in the town of Kisilova, today's Serbia, then under Austrian ruling, he died at 1725. The curious thing about this case is most certainly that after his death 9 people died within a week in the area, and a lot of them claimed Petar visited them and attacked them and strangled them just before they passed away. This is where the story splits in 2 versions actually. One of the versions states that his own wife claimed that he came back to her and asked for his shoes. She decided to move away to another town for safety reasons. The other part of the story is that he came back and asked his son for food, and he was denied by the son, and then he violently attacked and gruesomely murdered his son. As the townfolk grew afraid, they demanded that the corpse to be staked to make sure that he would stay in his grave. They demanded that a representative of the authorities were present along with the town priest. However, the authority at place tried to make sure that the townfolk waited for the approval from Belgrade to commit this act of precaution, but the townspeople grew eerie and claimed that they would be killed by the time that the permission came through, and forced the authorities at place to consent to these actions. They did in fact proceed to dig up the body, and the priest was shocked to see that all the signs of vampirism was there. The body had allegedly grown new, longer nails and hair, and the decomposition was minimal. The townsfolk didn't want to wait and proceeded to stake the body, and they claimed fresh blood flowed from the body's mouth and ears, in which they realized it wasn't enough and burned the body instead, finally putting an end to this horrific monster. And this train of thought were kind of common actually. When Philip Rohr devoted an essay on the matter in 1679, which was continued by Michael Ramft in 1734, they came across a strange thing that when they dug up the graves, they could see that coffins had been scratched from the inside, and that the inhabitants of some coffins had eaten some of the fabric or even their own limbs. and this discovery kind of fueled the idea of vampirism. The Gothic vampire we know today was created by Bram Stoker's Dracula, more or less, and is very loosely and very questionably based on the Romanian Count Vlad Tepes, or as he was born, Vlad III Dracul. Vlad was the Count of Transylvania and fought the Ottomans' expansion through Europe. While he was not a vampire and drank blood, he certainly was a bloodthirsty count with cruel punishments to those who went against him. However, in Romania he is widely known as a national hero because he fought back the Ottomans, but his reputation in the West exceeds fact and are more driven by fiction thanks to Stoker's Dracula. Dracula is a classic Gothic vampire, a dead person, a gentleman, but a blood-sucking monster feasting on his victims he lures to his castle. This interpretation of the vampire became more popular than ever, and old vampire lore was basically forgotten, and in many cases still is today. In later years, however, the Gothic vampire has been conquered by the more monstrous type. While they coexist, each writer or believer in the creature chooses their own interpretation at the taste. And numerous of pop culture uses the more monstrous vampires, such as Stephen King's The Salem Slot, or the TV show Supernatural and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and a movie From Dusk to Dawn. There is even a very romanticized version of the vampire that has been shown lately, like in Twilight, which is basically built on the gentleman that was the Praetorial Gothic vampire. These new vampires, however, being from True Blood or Twilight or whatever they're called, has little or nothing to do with the historical idea of a vampire as we can see. One thing is for certain though, werewolves and vampires isn't gonna leave us anytime soon. In fact, I think they are rising in popularity. I don't think this is a bad thing in any way. There are so many untold stories in pop culture how to use this monster, and there is even subcultures today throughout the goth subculture that are self-proclaimed vampires. Yes, they drink each other's blood through wine glasses and have rave parties. That's what I heard. Whatever you believe is up to you. I only bring clarification on what a vampire actually was or is, and I hope that this video taught you something. If so, don't be afraid to leave a comment or a like, and if you just despise me or whatever I do here, then leave a dislike. I always work for better content. And I hope to see you next time for the next Myth and Monsters, and please, if you have suggestions, leave those below in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more.